sounds like a good idea. Oh my God, recording in progress.
It gave me a message that I had to consent to being recorded.
Would you mind consenting then,
I
please?
have.
That's all right. Oh God.
Oh,
I am cross this morning. We're very sorry, people. We've just come back after a long time of doing millions and millions of different things, which no doubt we shall talk about. And I've started life with a bad morning. We've just started life with a bad morning about our cars, because we hate computerized cars, because we haven't got a clue where the battery is. At least Fiona's found yours, haven't you?
I found mine eventually, yes.
And where have they hidden it?
It was underneath a tailored cover, tucked away at the back of the compartment.
What, Armani or Gucci?
Unfortunately, just black plastic.
Oh, I thought it might be something posh.
No, it's a Ford. Come on.
Oh, that's true. Come on, Ford is the megas of the universe. Come on, yeah.
It's more a case if you can have any bit you like covered in plastic and black.
Well, that certainly used to be how it was.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yours is playing up with lights and computer dashboards and stuff.
yeah, mine. You know these screen thingies where they put these. You can have the sat nav up there, or the radio, or the phone, or the Christ knows what else, or probably a video to make sure you crash. And anyway, it just sort of lights up, and you think, yeah, okay, it's going fine. And then a couple of times when I was coming back from, by the way, everybody, if you don't know, I am now doing belly dancing. Anyway, I was coming back from belly dancing, and it went out. Everything went black. The car was still going, so that was fine. But I thought, odd. So didn't really think about it. And I did it again, and it puts up this little round white blob, which sort of says lights or something. And so you go, right. And so I phoned the garage and got this complicated, very, very kind sounding, but complicated woman who sort of says, well, I better make sure we've got all the parts before we let you come in. So you thought,
Hang on a minute. How does she know what parts are needed if she hasn't seen it?
I decided not to go there. I decided that would involve me in yet another half an hour of idiot talking, and I couldn't actually, be asked at that time.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, fine. So, we might have to give you a replacement car. Well, they can only give replacement stick cars. Now, I know how to drive a gear car, but I can't do it because my leg won't do it. And stop giggling, Fiona. She's watched. It was rather amusing because of your little car.
Right? It was amusing, but at the same time, it's a real problem.
It is a real problem. My drive then was half a mile long. I said, can I take it up to the end of the drive and back? Yeah, of course you can. So I took it up to the end of the drive and back, and I limped back in after driving a mile with a stick car on the flat.
Yep.
So, and no, we didn't even start.
You'd only gone through a couple of gears, so you hadn't even used the clutch.
No, I think I made it to third.
Yeah. And then back down again.
Yeah.
But it's, as an option for a replacement car, it's just not going to work.
No, can't do it. Fortunately, Paul still can. So I'll take it in, right? Okay. So they sort of suggested that sparrow fart this morning, so we did suggest an hour later. And so the poor soul just staggered up. Hey, I'm going driving to Shrewsbury. Yeah, fine. Yeah, okay. See you later. We'll have coffee. And so I still don't know what's actually happened because he's only just come back as we started doing this. But it's terrible because we could both. I was brought up on petrol by this racing driver dad of mine. You were brought up on petrol by all your biker brothers and everybody else.
Yep. I was holding spanners long before I got a driving license.
You could tip the whole of the timing mechanism in a bucket of paraffin and put it back together again. Not quite, she says.
Probably could.
You probably could at that time, yeah.
You actually know what a tappet clearance is and how to adjust it.
We're not getting into boxes full of tappet clearance. This is one of the things that Otherworld occasionally send our students out on. on the apprenticeship. They send them out to find a box of tappet clearances. Think about it. It's the word clearance that's the clue.
Yes.
Anyway, quite apart from that. So, but now, you know, we stare under the car and look for the dipstick, let alone anything else.
Yeah.
Can I check the oil? Do I? Where?
It's about the only thing you can check.
Oh, and we've talked about the screen wash. We could
Yes,
actually,
you
we
can
thought we
read
could
the
probably
screen.
feel the screen wash. Oh, there's something else that Paul's found. It's about the car's bodily fluids, as he calls them. And there's something.
Fluid reservoir, but it's got on it do not open.
Ah, ours might have as well. Yeah.
Presumably because they're pressurized systems these days. I've got visions of opening it and brake fluid spraying into the no.
It could be a little too exciting. Boom.
You can go to the garage for that.
Absolutely. So anyway, he's just got back and I don't know what's happened, so we shall all discover. But I started off cross this morning. Well, I something said to me this morning, look at the news. I never look at the news. I don't look at the news. If I do look at the news,
I haven't looked at the news today, so this is news to me.
Oh, well, there you are, you see. There is some news today. Can't remember what most of it was. It was that dull. But there was this bit that said, it was the BBC, of course. So, oh, well, I'll risk it. Or was it the Groniad? I can't remember. No, I think it was the BBC. And it sort of said, the problems with bushfires. Well, I was quite interested. So I thought, okay, possibly there might be a good article. And so the first sort of like about yay long was quite good. Of course, they start off with how frightful it is for humans, but they did actually get to the stage of showing you how absolutely appalling it is for animals, and how many of them died, and how many of them died slowly, either with burns or with starvation or with nothing to drink and no shelter. And so I thought, okay, you know, so I carried on reading. And then it got into, well, obviously what had happened. No, I'm going to get this bit in first because it made me so cross. It made me think of yellowhammers. I knew that would make me think. Yellowhammer is a rather gorgeous little bird, and Fiona has a lot of them up there, and I think I've got one down here. They're absolutely gorgeous, aren't they?
They are, they're beautiful.
And any little sort of songbird thing. And they've got a very distinctive song, which all tweeters, i.e. bird people, call a little bit of bread and no cheese. So a little bit of bread and no cheese, says the little bird. And anyway, my crossness reminded me of this because I thought when I get into the second half of the article about bushfires and about all about them, it was a little bit of truth and lots of lies.
That would explain the reference, yes.
So I was like, yes, I know that for millennia, never mind millennia, fire is something that nature uses. And there are some seeds that only burst into life when they've been burned. So I thought, I know what the editor did. He said, let's have a bit of positive spin on this article. It's sounding too gloomy. So, as I said, we got about yay much about the horrible bushfires particularly in America and Australia, where they have been totally planet, particularly the Australian one. And then we got about yay long, moves back a bit to get enough room, about the advantages of bushfires. As though this was even relevant.
I'm speechless. Granted, there are some trees and bushes which have adapted to fires.
Because what has this got to do with bushfires that have been caused by global warming?
That's got absolutely nothing to do with it. Absolutely,
no.
Exactly. It's a classic example of I think what they call the straw man argument, isn't it?
Explain the straw man argument. I do
I'll
understand.
try and explain the straw man argument.
Okay.
Basically, what you do is to distract attention from the real issue, you put a target to one side, your straw man, literally.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everyone aims at the straw man and forgets about the main issue.
Yeah.
And that's what they've done.
Exactly.
Look, eucalyptus trees are adapted to fire. Yes, they are.
Not that much.
No, and not these fires, and not this often, and not with all the other environmental stresses they've got.
I mean, the Australian bushfire, if you look at Australia sort of like that, the whole of this bottom quarter of Australia was on fire.
Yeah.
That's a quarter of a continent, not a country even, a continent.
The Amazon, Siberia. But do you have any idea how vast Siberia is?
Probably not. But I do have an idea, but it's sort of a bit mind-boggling.
Siberia is bigger than the US. It started burning every year. That's tundra burning.
Yeah.
That's permafrost.
Yeah.
And yet it catches fire and millions upon millions of acres burn every year. The rainforests in the Amazon, in Asia, they're all burning. And it's not an unusual thing anymore. It's now, this is fire season.
Yes.
And it runs for half the year.
Yeah.
In rainforests.
Yes.
This is
point rainforests.
Yes. The problem we have here is that rainforests are not adapted to fire. Ever.
And they don't have plants that work in fire.
No. Eucalyptuses are adapted for a very quick hot fire. It's what they call a crown fire.
Yeah.
Zips through the canopy and it's gone.
Yeah.
And eucalyptus, that's why eucalyptus gum trees actually produce eucalyptus oil, which is volatile, which gathers above them and actually encourages fires. Yeah. But these quick hot fires that zip through, burn off the dead growth and are gone. Not fires that keep going for millions upon acres for weeks on end.
Months on end.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also that particular quarter of Australia is not completely forested only by gum trees.
No, it's not.
It used to have lots of things.
There are some absolutely amazing facts that I've come across with relation to the Australian bushfires, and that's wombats. And I don't know about you, but I grew up with this image of the wombat as this koala bear that's been hit on the head with a brick. They look stunned. They look as thick as bricks.
They're not.
They are not, no.
They're also quite fast.
It turns out wombats excavate enormous burrows, and when there is a wildfire, they actually encourage other animals to go in, even kangaroos.
Yeah.
You'll find kangaroos down wombat burrows, hiding from the fire. Yeah. Which may keep them alive while the fire passes over. And if it's a very quick fire that's just going to be here today, gone tomorrow, fine. But if it's going to be burning for months, what the hell do those kangaroos eat when they come out?
What do they drink? What does anybody drink? Because that was a terrific problem.
Yes.
You know, people talk about starvation, but I mean, so many things. I mean, how long do you actually know how long you can actually last without water?
This is the rule of threes. 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food.
Possibly longer without food if you've got water.
Well, if you've got water, yes.
Yeah.
But if you haven't got water, it's academic because you're going to die in 3 days anyway.
Exactly, you won't be there.
A lot of the big permanent rivers are now seasonal.
Yeah.
Or they get diverted. I mean, when was the last time the Columbia River reached the sea?
Well, I mean, that goes way back to bloody California and bloody oranges, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. But
and the Hoover Dam, for God's sake, where the whole of the Colorado River doesn't get to the sea.
Yes.
Ever.
And yet the Hoover Dam is now at historically low levels. It's gone so low they've had to drain the feeder reservoirs upstream to maintain minimum levels.
And guess what the Californians are still doing?
Well, they're still watering their lawns and their golf courses.
And growing fucking oranges.
And growing oranges. And nuts and other peaches and stuff like that.
Yes, but don't start me on that because they actually plane fly bloody great, huge, ginormous planefuls of bees from Australia to pollinate those poor bloody orchards.
Yes.
What?
And then the bees, of course, die at the end of the year, and they've got to fly a whole load more in the next year.
Yeah.
But the root
That's
of
business.
the root
Sorry,
of the
dear,
problem-
that's business.
yeah.
Right.
The root of the problem is, of course, humans.
Mm.
It's as simple as that.
How many of you eat strawberries for Christmas?
Well, I can't say I ever eat strawberries for Christmas.
No, but I mean, how many of you
Yes.
do look for it in regular and that kind of thing?
Mm. Anything that we eat out of season. I don't know if we can find a photo. We can probably find one of those horrific photos of the greenhouses in Spain. That's where all our salad crops come from, people.
Yeah, and all your organic ones too.
Yeah, questionable how organic they are.
Yeah, they've got the label. They must be.
Let's just see if I can find one of those photos.
Okay. But you can't possibly argue. I mean, they've got a label. It's like Armani and Gucci. You're bound to believe it.
Yes.
This is organic. It says so. Therefore, I'm all right. The fact that they have absolutely wrecked the water table in the places where they grow all these acres and acres and acres and acres and acres of greenhouse salad crops for all of you lovely organic people. I'm organic too, but I don't do that. And they've wrecked the water table in Spain and Portugal. So think about it. What does your label mean? We're back to Gucci and Armani again and your car.
We are.
We are.
Right, I have a photo.
Come on then.
Let's show
Shoot
you.
your photo.
It's absolutely horrific.
It's scary. This is how your organic salad crops are grown.
There you are. That's all greenhouses.
Yep.
Mostly made of plastic.
Yep. And they mostly have to have a new plastic cover on them every year.
They have to be pollinated artificially because where the heck do the insects live?
Yep.
So you're flying more bees in. That is no way to grow food that's worth eating. It
No.
really isn't.
And even if you don't put any chemicals on it,
Which they do, of course.
I mean, well, there are a lot of organic farms in Spain, and they do use big green, not probably quite the same as this, but they do use big greenhouse stuff, and they do wreck the water table by pulling in all the water from there. Quite apart from when you go on your Spanish holiday, of course.
Yes.
So back to the BBC and me being very cross and the poor wretched Yellowhammer. Well, I think it was rather good of the Yellowhammer to come along and say a little bit of truth and no lie and loads of lies. You know, yeah, okay, fine, I can get that. It was a nice article. You sort of thought, oh well, everything will be all right then.
Which of course it won't be.
But of course, that was the idea. And this, of course, came from the BBC, who an awful lot of people still trust for the truth. Yes. Even my husband does a bit.
Yes.
And it's like, no.
Unfortunately, they are no longer a truthful organisation.
No, they're a government organisation.
Yes. Well,
and they talk whatever government type speak is good. And there's an awful lot of, in this particular article and in others like it, what we used to call don't frighten the horses.
Yes.
I.e., don't scare the people. Don't tell them that, you know, things can't be all right. Allow them to believe that, yes, we can reverse climate change.
And also, you know, carry on voting for the people that we want you to vote for. Don't upset the apple cart. Don't make people's lives uncomfortable.
No, make them feel it's okay.
Yes.
And, you know, we don't care about the people who are so poor and in horrible countries where they won't let them vote anyway, because they don't matter.
They don't care about the ones in this country who fall into that category either.
No, exactly. And there are quite a few of those. If you're homeless, you can't vote.
Mm.
Did you know that?
It won't be long before you need a COVID vaccination certificate before you can get in and vote. That's going to disenfranchise people. I mean, personally, I don't have a problem with people getting vaccinated for.
No, I don't. But there are an awful lot of people who do.
You know, it's a matter of opinion. And if somebody holds that opinion so strongly they want to avoid vaccination at all costs, they're going to be disenfranchised.
Mm. Yeah. 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 So we're back on what seems to be one of our mega themes is like, for goodness sake, buy yourself a large pot of salt. And every time you watch TV, listen to the news or read some news,
Big pinch of salt.
Pinch of salt. Really? Why are they saying this? What have they got to gain from it? And I'm sorry, it sounds horrible and it sounds like we're a pair of conspiracy theory twats, which we're not actually. But don't believe that people will necessarily tell you the truth, particularly if they're in power.
Particularly if they have any vested interest in it whatsoever.
Like a company, like shares. You know, like they've got an honorary job with so-and-so that gives them a stipend.
Yep. Yep. Anything like that, you start you see the same thing when you know, I trained as a historian. You always look for the bias in your source.
Absolutely.
And when you go into this as an undergraduate, oh, Caesar is a great source on the Gauls. He was there. Yes, he was.
So was Rupert Murdoch.
He didn't speak Gaulish, and he was basically writing, you know, to keep the Roman public amused with his adventures amongst the barbarians. So you've got to allow for bias. You've got to say, what's in it for them? Why are they writing this?
Yeah.
Follow the money.
Who's the bloke who's written those absolutely hoot, almost James Bondy descriptions of the Druid groves down near Marseille?
Oh, I don't.
It's not Tacitus. He begins with
it might well have been Tacitus.
I thought it began with a V. Anyway, him.
There were a number of Roman writers. A lot of them were writing pulp fiction, basically.
Effectively. Or the Rupert Murdochs of their day.
Yes.
Because
they're not reputable broadsheets, they're tabloids.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, actually, broadsheets aren't necessarily reputable either.
Not anymore. They used to.
You have to take that salt and have a look at everything there. And I don't have really any academic training, but as you probably all know, I live with this sort of idiotic bloke who used to do lots of particle physics. So he has scientific training. And the same as a historian, you look for potential bias in your results and in yourself and in your own methods of how you set up this test for whatever particle physics thing you're trying to do. And you always check that. Now, did I do that? And that's why you get what they call peer group analysis, because your mates come around and they go, but you haven't thought of that.
Yes.
You haven't mentioned that. And really, is that true?
But if you set it up that way, of course you're going to get this result because you prevented anything else. And that is exactly what they're trying to do with our thinking.
They're trying to set it up so that we think only as they want us to. And an awful lot of people do.
Yes.
And that I find very, very frightening, because we can't find our way through the COVID problem, which we're never going to finish. It's never going to be over. We're going to have to learn how to work with it.
We'll have to live with it the same way we've lived with practically every other disease in the last, you know, how long is it since humans evolved? 3 million years?
Yeah, what's the one disease we actually managed to deal with? Smallpox.
Smallpox, yes.
And I still think that's possible. They're still worried just in case it finds a way back.
Yes. But that was a special case.
It was a very special
That
case.
was actually a human-only disease.
Yeah.
And in that case, yes, if you can get rid of all the disease in humans, it doesn't come back. But COVID is not a human-only disease.
And practically no virus is.
No.
They just don't normally work like that.
No.
Smallpox was an oddity.
Yes.
And
but no, COVID's not going anywhere. Live with it. We will have to live with it, or we will have to die with it. Those are your choices, people.
And there are actually some very interesting choices, because unfortunately you all have to suffer me blogging away again tonight. Which have a little bit to do with my subject for tonight, because I have rewilding on the brain at the moment, so we're going to have another chat about that, because there's some more stuff to come up. But one of your big choices with COVID, with any virus, with any disease, illness, is what do you eat and how do you live? Now, who was the bloke who said, let your food be your medicine?
Possibly Hippocrates.
Could have been. Or is it the other one?
I think Greek, anyway.
It's a Greek, yeah. When he wasn't throwing plates, he was throwing out useful pieces of information like that.
Yes.
I think it might have been the other one. But anyway, one of these Greeks. And then later, philosophers have really taken it up. And we've had students who are nutritionists and friends as well. And they also largely sort of say, your food is your medicine. And let your medicine be your food is the other half of the phrase.
Yes.
Now that means thinking about all of those, that sort of totally endless, sort of like a sort of square jigsaw, wasn't it? Of polytunnels, plastic polytunnels, growing your food. No, that's not all right. Yes, the small amount actually of science that actually has tried to investigate what food is has found a few common denominators, and as long as you got those, you're all right.
That's the lowest common denominators. But
they're wrong.
There is a difference here between eating to stay alive and eating to be healthy.
Yes, there is.
And that's where there's this vast disconnect. All those greenhouses may keep you alive, but they'll keep you ill.
Yeah.
And being ill makes money for companies. Being healthy, it makes you a total dead loss for all the pharmaceutical companies, I'm afraid. They're not interested in healthy people. They can't sell you stuff.
Yeah. I mean, how many aspirins are you going to eat if that they want you to take? Sorry, mouth again. How many aspirins are you going to eat if you haven't got a headache?
Well, the answer is none, of course.
And why do you get a headache? There are several reasons, but some of them is bad eating and bad digestion. And the amount of things that live because they live in the way that you've created your digestion. Just about, in fact, I can't think of an autoimmune disease that is not there because you eat badly, because your digestion doesn't work properly. And this is scientific.
Yeah.
It's bloody hard to think of one.
I'm gonna change direction here slightly as well.
Go.
I'm going to bring Abe into this. My horse Abe recently had a cancer.
My God, it's a horse!
He had a cancer.
Yes.
Tumor. His body has ejected that tumor. Without surgery, without medicines. I went to a herbalist and she said, clean up his diet. He needs to eat foods which do not contain these things. He eats pure sugar beet. He eats whole oats and he eats dried grass. That's all I give him as extra food. He also gets good hay and free range grazing. So that's as close as we can get to natural food for a horse. And he has some herbs which are immune boosters and immune tonics.
Yeah.
And out of that, his body has ejected this foreign tumor. Literally. it just fell off.
Mm.
Worked its way out through his skin and fell off. He's got a tiny little scar that's healing up now.
Mm.
And all that in just a couple of months. I
What's
just
it
think
about?
how much better we could all live if we could all do that. Clean up our diets, boost our immune systems through not dragging them down with pollutants all the time.
And also actually going out and walking
Yes.
and getting out in the fresh air, playing, doing whatever we want to do, gardening,
Mm.
anything. And breathing, and
Yes.
breathing decent air.
And also having good company.
Mm.
Because the way I keep my horses, they're in a small herd. They've known each other for years. They are autonomous as much as I can let them. They come and they go in and out from the field and the barn. As much as possible, I've tried to arrange their lives to avoid stress. And the result is that they are happier, healthier horses.
Yeah.
But how many of us are free of stress?
Very rarely, very few. And that's even us.
Yes.
And we actually both eat very well and go out and exercise and breathe decent air, and we don't live in a town, and all sort of good things. And
Yes.
I grow my own salad vegetables and all that stuff. And we both eat meat that we absolutely know where it comes from and how it grew and even how it died. And
Yep.
so we have very, very good diets. And I mean, I'm another example like Abe, aren't I? I mean, I've got, because it doesn't go away, rheumatoid arthritis. That's an autoimmune disease.
Mm.
And I used to have a sort of Sainsbury's plastic bag full of meds every month, didn't I?
Remember it, yes.
Remembers it vividly, poor woman.
Mm.
And gradually I learned about what was not good for my gut and what had happened to my gut because of what I'd eaten, which was not good. And I stopped eating it, some of which is quite hard work, but you stick with it and it does work. And I'm basically on one medication now, which is completely different from the old medication from for RA. It helps your body. It's like the immune boosters for A. It not quite the same, but it helps your body work with and not take on the bad bits of the disease. And one other med for, because I've also got osteoporosis, because that comes out of the same thing, which I take twice a year now, and a few bits and pieces to keep on. I've still got the dry eyes, dry nose, dry mouth, which is another autoimmune disease. I've still got it, but it is much, much better, and I've got various things that help me when things are not right.
Yes.
And I used to have diabetes type 2. I used to have irritable bowel syndrome. I used to have 2 or 3 other things as well. I don't now. I am clear of them.
Yeah, now this is an amusing little anecdote that comes up with Abe as well. While I've been feeding Abe his immune boosters, they come as a mix of powdered herbs that I stir into his feed twice a day. This involves me leaning over the bucket while stirring, and I'm inhaling some of it. And you know, my asthma was so much better. And again, that's also immune.
Yeah, it is.
I need to go back to the lady who supplied the herbs and tell her, you know, can I get some of this because it really helped my asthma.
Yeah. And it's thinking things like that. Now, thinking those sort of things and working through those sort of things really, really helps you.
Mm.
Believing sweet talk articles in whatever news media you use does not help you. I mean, I'm really bad news for an awful lot of big companies because I don't eat anything made by, for instance, Nestle.
No.
I don't eat breakfast cereals.
No.
Well,
No, I don't
actually,
eat breakfast
that's
cereals.
not quite true. I do, don't I? But they're not made by them. It's
No.
basically ground. It's basically seeds and ground nuts.
Yes.
Which is made by a very small firm, which is very nice.
Yes. We don't eat things with sugar in.
Yeah.
So that's very bad news for Tate and Lyle.
Yeah, and every other sugar company, and
Yes.
I mean, you feed Abe the sugar beet.
I do. And this is the waste product after most of the sugar's been removed for human consumption.
Mm.
The rest is then sold as animal feed.
Mm.
But the one I get is, I carefully went through all the lists.
Mm.
But this one is 100% pure sugar beet. It's
Mm.
got 5% of the sugar left in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of them, they add molasses.
Yeah. Oh,
Or
yeah.
they add soya oil.
Mm.
No horse in the world ever naturally eats soya of any description.
Or molasses.
Or molasses. No. They will eat sugarcane.
Yes.
Come across it. But since sugarcane is native to America and horses weren't, since the last end of the Ice Age anyway, you know, it really isn't something that someone like Abe, who's evolved in Arabia, ever came across.
No, no. And if they did, it would be in such small quantities, in a little place, and only for a short time.
Yes.
Because it wasn't there, grown as a great sort of billions of acres.
No, there might be a tuft here and a tuft there.
Mm. Mm.
And you'd eat them in, you know, when they sprouted after the rainy season. Same with oats.
Mm.
Oats are actually native to the Levant.
Mm.
So yes, horses growing up on the steppes would have eaten wild oats.
But when? For about
But
3 weeks.
Only for a few weeks in the autumn.
Exactly.
When they're ready.
Yeah.
When they've seeded. Otherwise, they'll eat the shoots.
Mm. Mm.
And that is an option. I do sometimes feed animals on sprouted grain, because growing things like barley and oats and wheat, when you sprout them, there's actually a lot better bioavailability of all the nutrients.
Mm.
And things like the poultry love young green shoots. In the same way that, you know, we do micro sprouts.
Yeah, we do.
Throw them in our salads.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's like thinking about all of this kind of thing will really help you. And if you do think about all of that and really keep your own integrity and use the integrity of the food companies that you work with, you eat with, then the chances of you getting a virus and getting it badly just go.
They do
like
get
that.
much lower anyway.
Yeah.
You might still get it.
You might.
But then again, your chances are better.
Yeah.
And your chances of fighting it off and surviving are better as well.
Infinitely better, yes. I mean, I've had all sorts of bits of me replaced and been in hospital lots of times, like when you have to stay over and that kind of stuff. Hospital, I mean, you wonder about it. I mean, Florence Nightingale must be turning in her grave.
Yes.
Because the slop that you are given.
Well, as long as you're still alive when they can push you out the door, it's a success.
And yet, the nurses that I've spoken to and the doctors that I've spoken to, they all say, if only you could all be given decent food, we could keep you for half as long.
Yes.
If that.
Yes.
I started off because I refused to eat the slop. So Paul came in every day with food for me.
Yes, I remember that.
Horrified the nurses, and I was allowed to have my milk because I don't have pasteurized milk. And oh my God, you're going to die of TB. Well, you know, 60 odd, I haven't yet.
Doesn't have TB. Why would you have TB?
Because I drink milk that isn't pasteurized, you silly girl.
Yes, but
and it's all been infected by these horrible badgers.
The sheer stupidity of it just leaves you flabbergasted, doesn't
I know
it?
It does. My gast has never been so flabbergasted. But, you know, so, you know, he'd bring me in a thermos of milk for my tea and my nutty cereal thing. And then he'd bring me, you know, he'd cook me up a piece of venison and bring me some salad leaves. That was mine. And I don't mind having venison cold. That was absolutely okay. And nobody else was getting the slop. And a couple of It was a nice hospital, only 4 of us in our ward, so it was nice, and we got friendly. And the other women in the ward was like, "What are you eating? It smells awfully nice." It's piece chicken. It's a piece of venison. It's pork chop. And oh, where'd you get that? Husband, daughter. Yeah, slop. And it does make a difference. And I mean, all the medical people actually agreed.
Oh yeah.
But could they persuade the hospital? No. The admin of the hospital and the local council who sort of runs it and funds it, so I said, no, we're using Sodexo.
Yeah, well, it's cheaper.
And we've got contracts, and I've probably got shares of it.
Yes. So when you look at it in the short term, it's cheaper this year to buy slots and have them more or less made up and served out in a revolting half cold, half congealed state.
Yeah, good.
From a trolley on plastic dishes.
Yeah.
Then in the long run, it's much, much more expensive because you're busy killing people slowly.
Yes. And meaning, you know, more hospital staff need to be used, more doctors need to be used, more hospital beds need to be there, etc. Yes. Do you remember when Jamie Olinger did a couple of hospitals in London? And I think one of them's still doing it.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's buying as local as they could, and having proper chefs cooking proper meals. And it was actually, although perhaps initially more expensive because you had to pay the chefs more, you couldn't have any old idiot slopping things out of a tin. It turned out to be about half the price of the big firms. But of course, it was doing down the big firms, and the big firms support all political parties. Yes, all the political parties.
Yes.
And so we're not going to do it because the jobs for the boys are going to disappear.
I was trying to work out a little bit of maths the other day, which is always dangerous with me, as you know.
Not as dangerous as it is with me.
But I'd run across some sort of estimate of the wealth of somebody, like I don't remember who, maybe it was that bloke from Amazon. And
Elon Musk, probably.
It could have been, yeah. I was like, Bill Gates even. I was like that they are worth hundreds of billions of dollars. Well, while they're busy firing themselves into space for holidays and to cosset their beautiful manicured egos, there are 7 billion people on this planet. Why the hell are, 6.9 billion people living in abject poverty when these other people are sitting on all the money? If you look at the way their income is set up, let's just grab one. Here we go. Elon Musk, 179.4 billion US dollars. So he could quite cheerfully, single-handedly raise the entire planet out of poverty. Does he? No, he doesn't. Next time they're running around saying we're great philanthropists, remember that. They could, any one of those half dozen big names, they could single-handedly fix the world's problems. Instead of which, they go off and enjoy themselves and make sure that their bought politicians spend their time teaching the masses to hate each other because immigrants are taking our jobs. Well, no, they're not.
I want to turn that one a bit.
At the top.
I want to turn that one a bit too. It's interesting because Kim and I were having a chat last night. That's another horse friend of ours. And I can't remember how we got there, but it was sort of like, it was to do with because they run it. That's right, because she and her friend run an adult campsite, and I sort of said, at least it's an adult campsite. And she said, do you know what the insurance is like for having children? And that sort of set us into children, basically. And we sort of remember bits of our childhood. Of course, it was the good old days, but it was different. And we were like, well, why was it different? I mean, we were talking about things like doing the washing up. And I mean, you know, finish a meal in the evening, and Dad would say to me, well, Mum cooked that, come on, let's wash up. And I wasn't paid. Mum had done the cooking.
Yeah.
Dad and I did the washing up, and sometimes I did the washing up because I said, well, what about you then? He said, I mowed the lawn today.
Yep.
And or he'd done something else. And so there were jobs that needed to be done to keep the family going, you know, like cleaning the house and doing the washing and blah, 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 all the stuff. Yeah. And I was a child. I was a member of the family. I was a small member of the family. And I hadn't got the experience of the bigger ones. But I wasn't thought to be any more stupid. I wasn't thought that I couldn't understand that, you know, Dad had done this and Mum had done that, and so I could do this. And it was called sharing, and I sort of understood that. And so Kim and I were sort of like talking, well, what happened? You know, why did children demand money for doing the washing up? Who started all this? How did it come about? What happened? And we came to one conclusion. I don't know whether it's right, but it certainly has some, it's got some legs, so it can run a bit. And Kim sort of said, well, when we were growing up, there wasn't any TV. And there wasn't when she and I were growing up. There was the radio. Some of it you listened to, some of it you didn't, you know, parents. But there was certainly no TV, there were no pictures. And so we said, well, things like, we remember going to the cinema, and so, you know, you'd see cinema, Hollywood stars and all this sort of thing. But they never came into your house, they were in the cinema.
Yes. And
then we got TV, and then we got stars coming into one's house. And then we got, advertising really got going in the 50s. But again, until everybody got TV, you didn't see it. You saw posters and things like this. And you maybe heard a few jingles on the radio, but you didn't see adverts like you do now all the time. And so you didn't see a new kitchen. You didn't see a new bathroom. You didn't see a shiny new fridge or car. You didn't see some lovely clothes in a shop that, you know, made you drool that you want them. And we're saying sort of things like, you know, I think Mum and Dad eventually got rid of the sofa when I was about 16, and they'd had it since well before I was born. And it still worked. It was just about getting its last legs when they decided, well, possibly it'd be a good idea to have a new sofa. But it wasn't broke, so why did I want a new sofa? Why did they want one?
Yeah, my grandparents used to reupholster their furniture.
Yeah, we did too. Yeah.
You didn't throw it out and buy a new one. You just made a new cover and fitted it on.
Ours eventually went when various bits, like, you know, one of the legs sort of fell off.
If the actual, you know, if the legs break or the springs start leaping out at you, that's different.
Yeah, but which is where we got to. But no, just worn. And also, again, because people didn't have TV, people actually made things. And so, you know, you got made throws that you actually put over the holy bit of the sofa. And, you know, Dad helped patch it with some leather or whatever he got, or a bit of his old coat or something.
One of my earliest memories comes from the early 1970s, when there were all the power cuts. And the whole family sitting around the coal fire in the lounge, which was the only heat we had in the house. Mum was cooking dinner on it with a saucepan balanced on the coals. We got very good at one-pot meals that year. It would have been, what, 1974? Somewhere around there.
Something like that.
But it was a cold winter, and we all sat around and we made a rug. a big raya rug. It was something like 10 foot in diameter. Now the rayas are a deep pile of wool. Each one has to be, each length of wool comes and you fold it in half and put it through the canvas and lock it off.
Yeah.
And there were 6 of us and we all sat around that rug doing our own little bit. And the rug kept you warm while you were sitting because you had it on your lap. And we talked to each other across it and we made that rug together as a family.
And you made stories together as you were talking. How many families actually talk to each other?
There was quite a telling comic cartoon I saw on Facebook the other day, which was, it was just captioned the tan lines of the new generation. And across each chest was this. Yes, that is unfortunately true. We spend a lot of time on these, but we don't spend our time talking to people.
I mean, I
do get the irony of us discussing this on Zoom, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I'm not knocking technology and I'm not knocking TVs and I'm not knocking films. I'm just knocking how we use them or misuse them.
Yes.
You don't need to have music on all the time. You don't need to have a voice talking all the time.
No.
You don't need to be watching something. I mean, as Fiona knows, we've now got 2 bird tables set up around the house. And one of them's always been in front of the kitchen window, which is absolutely fantastic. But no, I actually want one around in front of the front room window, which we've now got. And so you can just sit there and it's much better TV. You just sit there and everybody goes, conversations sort of cease a bit and then they go, oh, there's a bullfinch. Oh, look at this. My God, look at those tits.
You get the war on the squirrel, which we had while I was last.
Yeah, that has so far now been won. I don't object to squirrels. I think they're rather sweet. And the pair of youngsters we've got playing around, I think absolutely delightful.
But not on the bird table eating all the bird food.
Well, when you start getting through, you've got one of these big nut feeder things like this. And, when you find that that's gone in a day.
Yeah. Yep.
My bank balance starts to go.
I have exactly the same problem here when the geese nick the chick food. Because, you can feed 14 ducklings for a day on what it takes a goose 10 seconds to inhale.
Exactly. And so I did it sort of explain to the squirrels that actually there was, this is a wildlife garden. We live in the middle of an organic farm. There is a lot of food around. And sort of like, I don't mind you clearing up after the birds. In fact, I'm very glad if you do, because I don't really want food scraps lying around. But you're not getting on the bird feeders. And it took about 2 weeks about 3 weeks before they finally decided that actually we'd probably won.
Yeah. It wasn't easy watching them.
It was.
An awful lot of, how are they getting there? She glanced out the window and there's the squirrel in residence. I said, how did they get there? What do we have to do? How did they find their way there this time? What do we do to stop them for next time?
And the funniest bit was because squirrels can jump quite a long way. Ours are not flying squirrels; they're ordinary jumping variety. And so we actually had to keep moving the bird table around a bit away from the various places where he could jump off the front porch roof or jump off something else that was over there. And there was Fiona sort of standing. I was sort of trying to pull the bird feeder around, and Fiona was standing there with both arms out. And I thought, I don't think they can jump your height, because that's your height.
Oh, they can.
And so anyway, it became Fiona and a bit. After we discovered that they actually could jump Fiona lengths.
Yeah.
So it became Fiona and a bit, and we've now got the size. We know exactly how big Fiona and a bit is. You may not, but you would if you lived here. And so, but we were working with them, and it was okay. Where did we get onto bird food?
TVs.
TVs. Yeah, our bird tables are much more fun than TVs.
Yes. I got rid of the TV something like 20 years ago. I was just so sick of having adverts in my house that I didn't want.
I didn't, because Paul watches TV.
Yes.
I don't watch TV except every now and again I want to watch TV because there's something that, oh, that's really good, I want to watch that.
Yes.
And but he does. Mind you, he is very good, and we have a remote control, and as soon as the adverts come on, it's off. Sound off. And if anybody he wants some tea, then he goes and makes some tea then, or something like that. So we don't even really see the adverts.
Yes.
And you sort of keep an eye open for when your program comes back. But sometimes, I mean, Paul will be working out something on the laptop. So in the adverts time, he carries on with whatever sum he's working out on the laptop. And occasionally I'm kind enough to say it's back. If I don't mind the program too much, I will. If it's something that is driving me completely bonkers, then I somehow don't notice that it's back.
Yes.
I can't really see, I mean, talk about agendas, that's mine.
Yeah. No, I decided that I didn't like the intrusion of alien energy in my house all the time.
I don't. But,
Since the other person living in the house was my daughter, she wasn't in a position to object too strongly because I was the one paying the bills. So you got ego.
Well, I mean, I could do the same thing because I'm the one who pays the bills in our house as well.
Yes.
But on the other hand, it does keep Paul quiet.
Yeah, Michelle was.
One has this sort of 5-year-old principle, as one's husband. On a computer game, dear.
Michelle would have been about 10 or 15.
Yeah.
So she probably spent most of her time on the internet anyway.
Yes, she did. And I remember you saying, so, she was doing her own thing. That was absolutely fine. But it's this intrusion. I know we got to. It's this intrusion of adverts and films and things like that. And the underlying stuff that comes, that the big companies that say, aspire to be like this. Aspire to look like this, aspire to have a kitchen like this, aspire to having a new sofa. You really do need a new carpet. How about a new car? And that changed, and that really was the 70s.
Yes.
There's nothing like so much in the 60s, although there were TVs, of course, but it wasn't anything like the same. And then the 70s, probably the mid-70s, really changed it. And since when, people don't seem to be able to exist without a TV.
No.
I mean, this house that we live in is quite large. And every bloody bedroom, and this room, my study, and the front room, not the kitchen, surprisingly, nor the bathroom, surprisingly, they've all got TV wires and slots and things.
Yep.
And we use one of them.
Well, my house has 3 TV slots.
Yeah.
I use none of them, but that's my choice. But why do you need to have a TV in every bedroom, in every room?
I don't know. Why can't you exist without a TV?
Well, since I do, yes.
No, but I mean,
it cuts you out of the gossip in the canteen at work, I suppose, because you haven't seen what everyone else watched last night. But frankly, there's so many other better things to do.
Yeah.
If there's
there's actually another thing.
What happened on Coronation Street last night? Then frankly, I don't want to talk to you anyway. But that's another matter altogether.
But also, there's another thing about the change in conversation, because you will be talking about, I don't know, whatever happened on your favorite soap opera, and everybody else will be. And I mean, I notice this sometimes. Like when I go to the belly dancing group or something, and somebody will sort of say, "Oh, did you see Sansa on TV last night?" No. And then 2 or 3 others will be talking about it, and I'm not included in the conversation because, of course, I don't have an opinion. I don't probably even know what they're talking about. Now, that matters to a lot of people.
Yes.
To be excluded from the I mean, I'm not nastily excluded, and if I want to talk about something else, they'll listen to me, they'll talk with me. But I don't have the normal set of conversation. And I think that matters to a lot of people because they don't want to be excluded.
It does matter. Psychologically, we are wired as group animals. The majority of us are wired.
I hear you say that. I cannot imagine it. I am not a group animal.
Not the sort of groups we have now. What we're talking about is a small tribe, half a dozen people, a family group even.
20 or 30 people even.
If you look at all the primates, we are hardwired to live in little groups who help each other, share, who say, hey, I found a good bee's nest. I'll hold the smoking leaves if you go up and get the honey. I will split the take. That's how we're wired from years, millions of years of evolution. So fitting in with the group is useful. And I can see, you can see that there is a pressure to do that.
Yeah.
I can understand why people want to be part of the group.
But
I don't want to be part of that group.
If your group is no longer on useful things like I'll hold the leaves while you get the honey.
Yes.
But on NCIS or Coronation Street or whatever blooming soap opera TV program you're into, how is that helping anybody? I can see the point with bees nest and the honey.
Yes. The other thing that really comes to me there is that we spend all our time in these little groups talking about something that doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We're most of these groups these days, if you can hear a strange thumping in the background, it's the sheep having a scratch on the other door. And we spend our time talking about events that are perpetrated by fictional characters in totally made up situations.
Yeah.
I listen to the radio in the van when I'm driving at work. And an awful lot of the time they're busy talking about the doings of celebrities. It's like these are technically not real people. Yes, they are living, breathing, walking around human beings. But the persona that you see is not the real person.
No, it's the masks that they wear, that they do become, some of them.
Yes.
But no, it's not the real person.
It's an artificially constructed persona.
And okay, I'm going to turn this one a little bit then, because you and I read a lot.
Yes.
So we might be talking about the characters in Left Hand of Darkness.
Yeah.
Now, these are all made up characters in a completely made up world.
Yes.
But we know that. And we find what they do interesting. And, I write novels anyway, so I was thinking Fiona writes stories too. But we know when it's a story and when it isn't.
Yes.
And the doings of the characters of Left Hand of Darkness, I find them fascinating, and I've read the book for about 40 years now.
Yes.
About every 2 years, and it's still got new stuff.
Yes. And another point there is that when you read these books, you are being educated. Your mind is being opened. You're being introduced to new ideas. You're not just being taught, you need a better boob job. Which seems to be the sometimes.
Or it's really important that you keep the relationship with him, or that you ditch her, or whatever kind of thing. Yes, there is all of that maybe in the book.
Yes,
but it's much more about what's actually going on inside the person, why they're doing this. And actually, soap operas can do this
if they're well done. Yes,
they can actually work this too. But we're not always talking about the books we read.
No.
We can be talking about all sorts of things, like
squirrels on bird tables.
Or I found this new lettuce. What do you think of it?
Yeah.
Or how the meadows in my grass coming along. Or you were talking about it yesterday. Your willow tree that said you can prune me provided you plant all of the prunings into a lovely big willow hedge sort of thing. So we actually end up with a varied diet of conversation, don't we?
Yes, and 99% of it is about real stuff that's happening in this world with our own hands.
Yeah. Mm.
We're not spending all our time looking at a plastic sheet on the wall and going, I want a kitchen like that fictional character who lives in another world called California
Yeah.
on an income of millions per whatever. These are not real people.
And there's certainly, I don't find anything.
You're never going to get it.
I don't find Hollywood type people interesting.
No.
And I don't want to be like that. I never did. I mean, you know, yeah, we all have hormones when we're teenagers and in our 20s and all this sort of thing. And you look at blokes and you think, oh, how do I catch him? And
yes, you realize you don't,
or whatever. But and so you know, you do go hunting and you put on hunting gear, and hunting makeup, to do whatever it is you want to do. But even in those days, there was a hell of a lot more to life than, you know, chasing the opposite sex in the hope of either finding a partner or a good lay.
Yeah.
You know, if you got either of those, well, it was a bonus, possibly. But sometimes both of them got in the way because you wanted to do something else.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to come for a walk on the Long Mynd with you. So you thought, oh, just go away.
Yes.
You're not as important as a walk on the Long Mynd to me today. So no, kind of thing. I don't know, but I do think an awful lot of it came when we changed when our aspirations changed, and that so many people felt that they, you know, they wanted to be like these people they saw on TV.
Yes, thinking about that, there's probably always, I mean, certainly in Britain, we've had this culture where, you know, the knobs live at the top in their castles and have fancy banquets, and the peasants.
Certainly for the past 1,000 years, yes.
But there doesn't seem to have been this, how can I put it, this urge for everybody to aspire to become, you know, a castle owner in that sense. It was enough if you got a new go-to milk bowl.
I think it made a difference once we, now we're going billion, you know, thousands of years back. I think it made a difference when we started to develop a hierarchy. Like, this is the guy who owns it, this is his wife, these are his children, this is the guy who makes all the rules for him and is right under him, but he's on top of me, and I'm down at the bottom and I clean the pig's well if I'm lucky.
Yes. And
once you got that kind of thing happening, I think that made a difference, because you probably got pretty pissed off with cleaning pig's well all the time.
I'd say that is actually quite late on the road of development. I would say, actually, as soon as you get somebody who says, you can't chase those antelope across here, this is my land.
Yeah, mine.
That's it. That's the red line.
But then that, I think, is when hierarchy started.
Yes.
Because,
but it's not as stratified as all the way down to the guy with the pig's will. No. It's simply a case of, this is mine.
Yeah.
And not, this is ours.
I mean, you see it happen between animals and human animals. That frightful times a long time ago now. These idiots built a town right across this elephant trail in Africa, which had been there for millions of years, seriously. And the elephants walked through the town, trod in people's gardens.
Yeah.
And so they tried to stop the elephants, and they killed them, and they fenced them off, and they terrified them and did all sorts of revolting things to them. And it was only because they had said, this is mine and you can't have it anymore. And the elephants sort of went, what? Does not compute.
Yeah.
And this must have happened with people when somebody said, this is mine, and you should go, but we've hunted here for 3 million years.
Yes. In a sort of way, we sort of see it now, again, with right to roam legislation.
Yeah.
Though it's a difficult one there, because a lot of the problem is not just farmers saying, you can't come in this field. It's, you can't have a picnic in this field unless you really want to kill my cows because you're leaving all your litter.
Exactly.
And
Or you're
that is a slightly different kettle of fish.
or you're leaving the gate open.
Yes.
Or you're going to sue me because you walked in this field and you messed about with these cows and this bull got upset and tossed you.
One of the best notices I've seen for farm gates recently is the one that says, "Do not enter unless you can cross this field in less than 10 seconds, because our bull can do it in 10.5." And I think that one.
I think that is rather good. But again, you know, we've both walked across fields with bulls.
Oh, yes.
But we actually know how to do it.
Yes.
And also you can learn to say, that bull is not going to be appreciative, whatever I do, we'll go this way.
Yes. Or that one's fine, he's got all his herd of cows.
Yeah, and it's Friday, we walk around this side, he and his cows are on that side. We are not providing any sort of a threat. And I remember the cow and her calf on Dartmoor, we had to go between them. And the three of us, and we all knew precisely what she was thinking. And it was like,
yes,
but we're going to go through. And we negotiated our way through.
Yes.
People don't know that. Oh, it's a nice, friendly cow. You go, no.
No,
not necessarily.
Speed are actually not friendly.
And well, certainly not if they've got young, because
no,
their experience of human may not be all that good.
Usually isn't.
And farm animals, it quite often isn't. And so, but we knew, but then again, we went out, we didn't spend our whole life sat on the sofa in front of the TV or Game Boy or whatever kind of thing. And we were told by our parents who also knew. I was having a chat with a farmer the other day, because, we get walkers through here, and they're usually all right, but occasionally they're sort of daft. And something had happened, and somebody had left a gate open. And so we were talking about it. I shut the gate, and I said, well, he's about my age, so it's like, well, I think probably when you were growing up, John, it was sort of like, leave the gate how you find it.
Yep.
And he went, yes, because maybe the farmer is moving sheep in there. Maybe he's got a tractor coming through doing that. Maybe he's moving something out and he wants the gate open. You shut it, you balled everything up completely. Yes. But you daren't even do that now. I mean, shut the gate is the safe one because you can probably get round that.
What's your point? Yes. The Countryside Code does say leave them as you find them.
I know. But again, I mean, how many
people don't bother reading that?
How many people ever read that or knew that or anything? So,
yes.
But it's a bloody thing, and that we listen to the story with a nice positive spin.
Yes.
And we believe it.
Yes.
And we don't believe things that might make us actually have to think a little bit, or possibly even not do something we want to do.
And give up some of the things that we like strawberries at Christmas.
Yeah.
There is no ethical way to eat strawberries at Christmas.
There isn't. No. No. And I think we have to think about that. And we have to think about ourselves. We can't have our cake and eat it then. We can't have a lovely world where the animals are happy, where the birds are happy, where the land is happy, and have all the shit lives that we live in now that we think we like.
Yeah.
So you've just got to think. It's time we shut up.
It probably is.
And I dare say from the scraping of the sheep and the squeaking of the dogs that I heard, that they're sort of saying, excuse me.
Nice rub. It's Jackie.
We would have seen Jackie.
Little wee Jackie.
Yeah, Jackie's the new addition in Fiona's household, who's completely taken it over.
He has tried hard anyway, haven't you? Jackie is a Jack Russell, as you can see. And he's 2 years old, and he came to me because he's a lockdown throwout, basically. He was bought as a puppy to keep the kids happy at the beginning of lockdown, and now they're back at school, and the parents are back at work, and the poor little dog was like free to a good home. So he's come to me, and he's doing a fantastic job keeping our rodent population under control. And even if he wasn't, he would still stay here as long as he lived.
Absolutely. And he gets on really well with the whippets.
Yep. We have had a bit of a feud with the goose.
Yes.
Which I've had to intervene in, but Jack won. Jack vanquished Hannibal the goose. We have had to explain that you're not allowed to chase ducklings, but he's allowed all the rats and mice he can chase, so that's fine. So he's happy.
And the mice and rats have all packed their bags in. Well, the rats certainly have packed their bags in.
I haven't seen the rats recently, but there's still a few mice in the feed room. They disappear very quickly as soon as they hear the door.
Yeah.
But if he catches one, that's natural selection, isn't it?
And it's actually all part of ecosystem and rewilding, to reverse around to that again.
Yes.
That everybody does work with everybody else. And sometimes
it sort of has to be.
Discretion is definitely the better part of valor if you're a rat and he's a Jack Russell.
Yes, and I know in the wild it would be the foxes keeping them down, but I keep poultry, so I don't want to encourage foxes.
No.
Not that close. They're fine down the field, but I'd rather not have them in the yard.
Yeah.
So Jack takes care of
But he's lovely. He's absolutely gorgeous.
He's a lapdog.
Oh, he's a complete lapdog.
Wants to be on my knee, and the computer's on my knee, so it's not going to work.
And by the way, I think, and possibly we might get even a picture for next week. Fiona's making drums.
Yes.
And Fiona is also working up to the fact that she can do drum birthing with you through Zoom.
I can.
We've had to.
We've had to because of the virus. So if distance is a problem for you, get in touch. We can fix this.
Yeah. This is a way.
Yes.
And it, I mean, why not? You sort of think when you realise it, but it's sort of the sort of thing you go,
yeah.
But no, it's amazing, and hopefully we might have even a picture of the new drum that's happening, which is quite stunning.
Let me hang on a minute. Let me just dive in here. This is a drum I made just the other day. As soon as I get around this.
Fiona also makes drums for sale, and this one is. And I've got far too many drums, so I can't have it. So it's up for sale for you guys.
Yes. This one is actually a commission that I made. Brand new and still soaking wet. So that one is away off to the States before long. That's Reindeer on Oak. If I go back a little bit, I've got a lot of details here because I'm sending instructions to another student who wants to work
on Zoom.
On Zoom. Let's just get rid of the gory photos.
Oh, that's interesting because that's the cancer fallen off.
That's the cancer fallen off. There's quite a lot of Abe with cancer fallen off.
Excuse us while we just go through all this.
This one is one that I made that is for sale. This is the sun drum. It needs a little bit of decoration on the front. It's going to have an arson sun disc on the front. This is Reindeer on Ash.
Yeah. Look at the whiteness of that. I mean, when it's got the sun pattern on it.
Yes.
And it's actually going to be in gold.
It will be in gold leaf, yes. Proper gold leaf. You can still see the backbone. This is the midline of the animal's back, the reindeer that they gave this skin.
Yeah. And you can see, I can't do it, but around the sides here, can you see my cursor? As best you can. It's almost like the sides.
Yes.
You can see the things on it. It's beautiful.
Just get rid of that
NHS Fiona, I don't think we want that.
this is the back view of the same drum. And you can see the light coming through.
Absolutely.
This again was glorious.
And yet it's supposed to be slightly off center like that.
It wanted to be off center. It's changed its center line slightly as it's dried. It has centered itself slightly more, but it wants to be slightly off center, which is fine. Yeah. That's what it wants to be. It sounds
don't you know, there's so many sort of variables that have not, there is no perfect.
No, every drum is unique.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we will shut up about that because we're going to talk about that next time.
Okay.
And
drums all day, it's no problem.
I'll be first.
Yes.
We can talk all day anyway. But no, it'd be great because if you've got any further with the sun pattern as well, that would be stunning. So, you know, maybe next week.
Yeah. Yes.
Anyway, I hope it's made a difference, and we're glad to be back, and we shall be with you regularly again. So take care, everybody.
Okay.
And see you again.